Hello, welcome to Inspired Caring. I'm your host, Michelle Magner. If you are caring for an older family member, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I bring insight, tips, inspiration, and strategies to help you care for the people that you love without losing yourself along the way. Having cared for both of my grandmothers, I've helped manage everything from hospital stays, households full of belongings, to navigating senior living and end-of-life care. And I've worked in senior living as a result of that experience, serving my residents and their families as they've been on this journey too. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Inspired Caring. Hello, my friends. I am here to talk about our kids and caring for aging family members. This is hard. This is a tough one because helping aging family members is really hard, alone. And then when you add kids into the mix, it's even more complicated and challenging. When I cared for Grandma Ferris, we were having our babies. So I had many years of juggling our kids and hauling infants into the assisted living and skilled nursing facility. So pushing strollers and wheelchairs at the same time, or plopping a baby in grandma's lap and hauling them around to restaurants and all of that. Especially when your kids are little, it's just so much more challenging because communicating with the kids is harder because they just don't really understand quite as much. But it felt pretty frequently that if she had doctor's appointments, I'd have to be getting babysitters or be sure things were timed around preschool. And then if things ran too long, tag in neighbors to help out, or my husband would rearrange his work schedule to accommodate whatever we needed. My kids would miss naps, which we know is a pretty big challenge. And oftentimes they would be napping in the car, which thank goodness I had car nappers because not everybody does. And what else? Too many times, for dinner, like I would just be wiped out. So we would end up having breakfast for dinner or cups of mac and cheese for dinner and have to shift gears on whatever dinner plan I had originally thought of. And there were times when I just remember driving back from the building they lived in and just bawling, like I can't do it all. And I want to have dinner, like a nice dinner. And thankfully for me, my mom would say, well, but I'll buy you dinner. No problem. And she would take care of our dinner. And I'll tell you, I stayed home for 12 years and helped both of my grandmothers for like 7 years in there. And my husband never, ever, ever asked what the dinner plan was or what's for dinner. Just in all those years. It's pretty amazing. I'd miss bedtimes with my kids sometimes because we'd find out that they needed to go to the hospital, or I don't know, they just weren't doing that well. So I would miss bedtimes. There were times when I was just so exhausted or emotionally drained from the day, and I just had nothing left to give. Like the idea, I just couldn't read stories or deal with bath time. I mentioned dinner. I was just a zonked out mama. Couldn't manage it. And the guilt, oh my gosh, the guilt was awful. I always felt like I was in the wrong place or not quite doing the right thing or not doing enough for somebody. And here I was doing something that was so good and helped someone that I loved. And I just felt so guilty, really incredibly guilty. And a lot of times it was tied back to just what I was missing with my kids. They're only little for a short period of time, and I just felt bad missing stuff. And I just loved them all so much. My husband, my kids, my grandma. And philosophically, I'm just wondering how a heart can expand to be so full of love, but then also be so broken and torn and divided simultaneously. It was just a lot. And I was lucky. I was so, so lucky because I have an incredible husband who would roll with things as they came. And our kids are healthy, and I was healthy. And, you know, really everything was set up and lined up for us to be successful. But it was still just so brutally hard. It's always so fascinating to me. It feels like the hospital visits always seem to occur at like 4 or 5 o'clock on a Friday. And if it's a holiday, right? I don't know what that is, but it's and that takes away from your family and the kids. I don't know what that's about, but that seemed to be a pretty frequent situation. Well, so then years later, our kids grew. So naps and bedtimes felt much, much less critical, and they had some independence and they could stay home by themselves. But I really don't underestimate the stress that was in the house for that period of time in their life when they were so little. And then stepping into all of the years that we began to understand what was clinically going on with my mother-in-law. And just navigating everything with my mother-in-law and father-in-law. I mean, this was the grandma who was the A-team grandma, the diaper changing, spoiling, hands-on grandma. And she started forgetting things here and there. And we noticed these subtle changes years before there was a diagnosis. But all of that starts to play into your concern when it comes to your kids. Like, she's driving our children around in the car. And there was a point at which we just felt like that wasn't the best idea. Like, that wasn't necessarily safe. So yeah, years before the diagnosis, we started noticing stuff, and we moved to Omaha to be closer to her, to be sure that we were creating more memories for our kids with her. I mean, we moved our kids away from their friends and the only life they knew so that we could be by the grandparents. And that really sparked from feeling concerned because we could tell something was going on. We didn't know what, but we knew something was going on. And our kids watched as grandma became increasingly confused, and the stress rose in the house. And obviously the stress rose up with their grandpa. And I mean, ultimately her mind slipped away to where we're unrecognizable to her anymore. And I remember our middle child, Maya, said that was just the day she was dreading, was the day that her grandma didn't recognize her anymore. And of course, ultimately it has come. And then their grandpa got diagnosed with cancer. And so they experienced years of treatments and concern with that. And with him ultimately passing away, it's just been a different experience. Our kids are having a much different experience than other kids whose grandparents are hanging out with them for the weekends or attending their celebrations or events or helping them get set up and established in life. And our kids are much older and much more self-sufficient. So the crippling guilt that I used to feel, I definitely had some of that guilt and have had some of that guilt more recently, but not nearly to the level, like really not nearly to the level. And there's definitely been deep sadness that we have felt over the last few years as things have unfolded. But I will tell you that we have some pretty amazing kids. They are emotionally intelligent, resourceful, independent, compassionate. They are problem solvers. And they really have a big picture perspective that I believe many kids and some people don't even have until much later in life. So we're 9 minutes in, and I wanted to share with you how we handled it with them. Like, what were the strategies that I felt like were really successful for us and have helped our family dynamic along the way? The first thing is we spoke very openly about things with our kids with age appropriate information, but we asked them along the way how much information they wanted because some people can handle the play by play of what's going on and what's happening, and other people struggle with that. So we very openly had discussions with them based on what information they wanted, and our kids wanted all of it. So that to them felt helpful. We did not do a lot of whispering in other rooms. That is very stressful because your kids will start to imagine what is going on. Are my parents getting divorced? Is one of my parents really sick? So we just had very, very open discussions with them and then gave time and space for questions, including how are you doing? How are you doing with all of this? Do you have any questions? Do you need to know anything else? What are your thoughts? That was really helpful because we wanted the opportunity for them to ask clarifying questions again so they don't over imagine or dramatize in their minds what's going on. So that's number 2. Number 3 is we show emotions in our house. I never felt like it benefited our kids um, to stuff those down. I feel like that contributes to their emotional intelligence. They see that the things that we're thinking are creating feelings in our lives. So we show emotions. Like Easter morning, I broke down bawling because of my stupid burnt bread. But the undercurrent was grandpa wasn't here, and I felt sad about that. So I shared that. That was why I was feeling so sad. Um, and I mean, I'm not saying that I don't cry alone in my car sometimes or have not been known to slip into a closet and close the door and sob, but generally, we show emotions in our house, and I think that's really, really helpful. So number 4 is we've never pushed them beyond their comfort level, um, or forced them to do anything that they did not want to do. We've always asked them, "Do you wanna go see so and so in the hospital?" Or, "Would you like to come with us to visit?" Or, I remember my daughter was, like, 3 years old, same daughter, Maya, and we were driving to go see a great aunt who lived in independent living, which is essentially apartments, and we pull into the parking lot of this building, and our daughter says, and I'm not kidding, "If it smells like death, I'm not going in there." And my husband and I looked at each other like, yeah, if it smells like death, none of us are going in it." But we were just like shocked. Where did that come from? So we've always honored our children's boundaries and never pushed them beyond their comfort zone in an area like this, where I want my children to be able to honor their intuition and what they need. So that's very, very important. And then tip 5, which circles a little bit back to the time for questions, is just asking them what are their thoughts? What are their feelings? How are they doing? What are their concerns and fears and worries? And having discussions with them about that because this stuff is scary. It's really scary to have people so stressed out and to have people that they love declining. So I just felt like all along at every age that it was just always so important to ask them, how are they doing? Recognize that my children are having their own unique experience with the situation. And I am the adult. I am their, leader, and my husband is their leader. So I want them to feel like they can come to us with anything for guidance, that, they can ask us questions about things and that they will respectfully have an honest answer. So those are, yeah, that's how we're doing it. That's how we've done it. I think it's working out. I feel like I mentioned we have these incredible kids. I'm not saying that it's not hard for them, but here's the bottom line is it's not going to change the situation. Like, we still have family members that we love and that we are going to help. So I feel like we may as well just put our cards on the table and have open discussions about it. So I hope you are doing well today. I hope you're in one of those nice plateaus. There's a life cycle of a caregiver I've demonstrated in some videos, and I just hope you're in a good space. And if you're not, I hope this helps. I'm really excited to be in service to you. I see you and I love you, and you are doing a great job. I know this is hard, but keep it up. We're just chipping away at this stuff one day at a time. And they are so, so lucky to have you. I look forward to being with you next week. Take care.